Welcome to United Network News, the official news channel for CARE, the Center for Amity and Restoration of Earth. I'm Sunny Galt. At UNN, you get the real news. Through our field messengers, we show you the truth about what's really taking place in our communities. We also bring you stories to help you remember who you are and why you're here, as well as regional stories that impact the people. And our World Situation Report reveals what's happening throughout the multiverse. We are here to restore Earth. In the U.S., it is Friday, September 13th, 2024. It's small but mighty. This garden in New South Wales features a variety of organic vegetables to feed the community through their local cafes and restaurants. And this natural wonder in Romania is one of the country's largest health spas, featuring the miraculous effects of thermal water and beautiful lotus flowers. Water can take all sorts of forms, including gas, solid, or liquid. Learn more about how our consciousness interacts with water at these different stages. Major floods hit northwest Nigeria. They're calling it the most severe flood in 3 decades. And a new report finds a growing number of women in the U.S. have no access to essential maternity care.
This is Calen, messenger for United Network News. Here's a look at today's field messenger reports from all around the world. A market garden in Tamworth, New South Wales is growing a variety of organic vegetables for local cafes and restaurants. UNN field messenger Leanne and Gerry tell us about their commitment to sustainable farming practices.
Hi everyone, this is Leanne.
And I'm Gerry.
Coming to you from Tamworth, New South Wales, and from our fledgling market garden.
The patch that we decided to use is beside a creek and used to look like that there through the fence. And so far we've established a very good bed of garlic here with 3 different varieties of garlic in it, and that's going extremely well. Then our next couple of beds are things that the cafes and restaurants need a lot of. That's rocket and shallots and salad mix and snow peas and that sort of thing. And that's what the second beds are. And now we're preparing another 8 beds here, and we start by scarifying that, or ripping it first, and then we have to go through and pick out all the weeds. Eventually we'll have about 70 beds here. That one over there will be edible flowers, and this side over here will be a herb garden. We will have no toxic chemicals in this garden at all.
Having a greenhouse in Tamworth is essential because in the winter we have really cold winters, and in the summer we need to protect them from the heat of the day as well. We've got brassicas, celery, spinach, lettuce mix, beetroot, and soon to have zucchinis, cucumbers, pumpkins, beans, all those beautiful summer veggies ready to go. If it's going to be, it's up to us. Leanne and Gerry, field messages, United Network News, signing off from Australia. See you next time.
The Felix Baths Resort in Romania has a special lake filled with rare lotuses and water lilies that grow in its warm thermal waters. UNN field messenger Monica shares more about this natural wonder.
Hello, this is UNN field messenger Monica reporting from Baile Felix in Romania. Located in the northwest of Romania, Felix Bath Thermal Spa is the most important resort of its kind in Romania and one of the few spas in the country that is open to tourists all year round, regardless of the season. This is mainly due to its thermal waters, some of which reach very high temperatures. In winter, the open-air thermal baths are a favorite with tourists. Shrouded in the mist created by the hot water, the sensation of going from cold to warm makes the experience all the more intense. The symbol of the resort, where you can visit this stunning lake with water lilies and thermal lotuses, is the lotus. The lotus raises its chalice over the shimmering thermal water, which has stubbornly maintained its splendor for tens of millions of years. The lake is a paradise. Rich in thermal water, it offers a unique spectacle of water lilies and lotuses. You'll find the water lilies in full bloom all year round, while the lotus offer a unique sight. Lotus flowers are symbols of strength, resilience, and rebirth. A lotus is a survivor, a fighter that never gives up. Do you see yourself like a lotus flower? I ask myself. Please have courage, never give up. Let your light shine brightly and have faith in you. Be like the lotus. Trust in the light, be the light, believe in new beginnings, bloom out of the darkness and radiate into the world. See you next time. Bye.
We want you to become a UNN field messenger. These are everyday people just like you who want to make a difference in their community. You don't need any special training or equipment. Just use the camera on your mobile phone and show us what's happening in your area. You send us your videos, and our production team will create the report for you. Our website is up and running at unitednetwork.earth. You can submit your Field Messenger reports directly through the Field Messenger tab at the top of the page. You can also email your reports to our email address at fieldmessenger@unitednetwork.earth.
Hi everyone, this is Leanne,
And I'm Gerry.
coming to you from Tamworth, New South Wales.
My name is Uchechukwu Ogbeneba from Igbo tribe, Nigeria.
Hi, this is Scott from Utah.
I'm Annette from Agassiz, British Columbia.
Hi, I'm Marcus Surzet from Manipur State, India.
Real people reporting real stories from all around the world. That's what United Network News is all about.
Can you clap?
We had a huge flood, which some call the flood of the century.
No fake news here. Our field messengers share personal experiences of what's really happening in their community.
We got some nice fish right here.
At UNN, you are the news.
My family and I had a very good time.
Take the next step. Become a UNN field messenger and share the real news with the world.
In the northwest province of South Africa, I am United Network News.
I am United Network News.
I am United Network News.
I am United Network News, and if it's going to be, it's up to me.
It's going to be, it's up to me. If it is going to be, it's up to me.
If it's going to be, it's up to us. Field Messages, United Network News. See you next time.
Water has many different forms. Here in the 3D, we are most familiar with water as a gas, liquid, or solid. Veda Austin is a water researcher who's dedicated the last 10 years observing and photographing the life of water. She believes water is fluid intelligence, observing itself through every living organism on the planet and in the universe. And the different forms of water reveal levels of consciousness. All right, so Veda is joining us again. Of course, we're talking about water, the consciousness behind water. And Veda, one of the things that I love about the experiments that you've done is that it's not just about a liquid form, going into more of a frozen form, but you've talked and experimented more with gases as well. It's really all different forms of water, right, that you have experience with.
I have, and I have a lot of theories. So, I tend to approach this from a three-pronged way. I like the latest water science. I'm very interested in that aspect. I look at it from an artistic perspective, and I look at it from a more indigenous and spiritual perspective. My father is native New Zealand Maori, and there is a word in that language, in our language, which is wairua, and it means spirit. Wai means water, and rua means two. So it Very rudimentarily put, it means two waters, the physical and spiritual waters. So I think the physical waters are what we see. We see that there is water flowing in the stream and the oceans and various things. We know there's water within the body. Well, what is spiritual water? And even you calling this the consciousness of water. So I don't know that we know if water is conscious, or is our consciousness impacting the water? Well, I've done a lot of work around that question. And in the very early stages 10 years ago, when I didn't know any better, I would have assumed that our consciousness is impacting the water. I would not have believed that water could be sentient or conscious. But I've done things along the way to try to see whether or not there's that possibility. Like, how can I take my conscious expression away at all and do this? So because I really can't do that, I've decided to ask questions which have no visual answer for. For example, or write words. And words have been very helpful for me. So if I write the word ego, which I did, I wrote ego on a piece of paper, put my dish of water on top of it for 30 seconds, removed and froze. Now, ego is not something that we visualize. It is a concept word. And so we can't go buy ego at the store. It's actually a very big concept that you could go into days and days of conversation around. But what water did was design these big shoulders and neck, a little face, and a giant balloon head. And that was not what I did not have a visual for it. Same thing with grief. When I wrote the word grief, I thought, well, maybe tears, maybe a broken heart, but water designed the outline of a body with holes inside. Wow. So I also did a lot of work with dreams, because I thought, well, when am I not consciously working with water? And so I thought, well, the dream time is a subconscious state, but I'm not actively trying to work with the water, as we are in waking stage. So I would leave a dish of water beside my bed, with the intention that maybe it pick up some part of my dream. I slept in the dark, so it's complete darkness. And when I woke up and I knew I'd had a dream, but I forgot my dream, and you know how the more you try to cling onto it, the quicker it goes. Mm-hmm. So it was only when that happened would I freeze the water, because otherwise I might remember a dream and project. So when I knew I'd dreamt but couldn't remember it, I would freeze it. And what was interesting is that the imagery that came out of the dream freezes was more clear than a lot of the imagery that I get in waking stage. And it was so clear that it would literally jog my memory of the whole dream. And I was able to record that for the months that I did it. Yeah. So how can water accompany you in the dream time? And I think that what we're starting to see is that water is in many stages. And I have touched on the fact that there are more stages that we're aware of. And I think the vapor stage, or the gaseous stage, is one of those stages that is aligned with consciousness, the awareness that where we can actually leave a body and come back, the observer space. Many people have had experiences where they may have had a spiritual kind of meditative space where they feel like they've left their body and observed it. They've had that in psychedelic experiences, and people who have had near-death experiences often have this sense of rising, which is what a gas does, looking upon their body with no attachment to the body whatsoever, being more of an observer. And so that, I think, is where this other stage of water is, intertwined with consciousness so that they behave as one, or perhaps a kind of a conscious expression of the whole, which is a little piece within us. And when we leave the body, we can identify the whole by becoming that. So it's very complex, but also kind of makes sense, because all religions, they tell us that the soul or the subtle body or the spirit leaves the body, but no one explains how. I think water explains how.
In drought-stricken southern India, innovative water dispensing machines are providing a lifeline for communities. For under 10 US cents, locals can swipe a card and receive 20 liters of clean drinking water. These machines, known as iJal or My Water Stations, are being set up by local entrepreneurs, many of whom are women. With an initial investment of $2,400, these stations can each serve up to 350 families, creating a sustainable public service business. Research shows water stations reduce waterborne diseases, lower medical expenses, and keep children and families healthier. The Safe Water Network supports these efforts by providing technical expertise, marketing, and training. The program aims to expand further, creating clusters of water stations across India's most underserved regions, offering clean water and economic opportunities for women in remote areas. An all-woman cooperative in Mexico City is making significant strides in improving water access by maintaining and upgrading rainwater harvesting systems. Previously, residents faced water shortages and often relied on questionable sources for their needs. As the main reservoir's water levels dropped dangerously low, the government introduced a rain harvesting system, providing 70,000 families with clean water. This system includes multiple filters to ensure safety and greatly improves the quality of water for drinking and household use. Despite its initial success, financial difficulties have led some residents to abandon or sell parts of their systems. The cooperative, formed by trained women, offers services to clean filters and pipes and clear debris, ensuring the systems function properly. They also teach residents how to maintain their equipment to keep the water safe. The cooperative aims to inspire other women and girls to engage in similar practices and help solve rainwater system issues effectively. In the UK, rainwater harvesting is making a comeback as a solution to water scarcity, a pressing concern for many regions worldwide. This ancient technique, practiced for thousands of years in countries like India and Iran, allows communities to capture and store rainwater, ensuring a reliable water source even during dry spells. Several government grants are available to help farmers transition to rainwater systems, with water companies actively supporting these efforts. This switch to a greater reliance on rainwater supplies has helped to reduce concerns about future drought, offering greater water security. We are United Network News. Every day, we release real stories from real people all over the world.
Field Messenger reporting from Gold Coast, Australia,
Denmark,
Canada,
Uganda,
from Atlanta, in Southern California.
In their own words, people like you share what's really happening in their area. At UNN, you are the news. You are creating a new world with infinite possibilities. You are the restoration plan. Come join us for the real news every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, only on United Network. We're UNN, and we're taking back the news. Recent flooding in northeastern Nigeria has claimed 30 lives and affected more than 1 million residents. Unusually heavy rains caused a dam to collapse in Borno State, leading to the region's most severe flooding in 3 decades. In response, many have relocated to safer areas. More than 15% of the state's capital remains submerged, and the flooding has led to rising food costs due to the destroyed central market. Escaped wildlife from a damaged zoo further alarmed residents, with at least 1 crocodile killed near homes. Rescue operations continue while displaced residents are taking refuge at a former refugee camp outside of the flood zone. A health train in South Africa offers free medical services to communities with limited healthcare access. Operating since the end of the apartheid, the train travels across the country, reaching up to 375,000 patients annually. This mobile clinic travels to areas where people have a hard time accessing health care due to overcrowded local clinics or financial constraints. Many rely on the train for essential treatments, such as medical checkups, dental care, and optometry services. South Africa's public healthcare system struggles with insufficient funding and corruption allegations, making this health train an important resource. Recent reforms, like the National Health Insurance Act, aim to improve access to private health care, but critics worry about costs and potential misuse. Millions of African children cannot attend school due to armed conflict and violence. More than 14,300 schools were closed in 24 African countries as of June of this year, with the most closures in Burkina Faso, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Cameroon, Chad, Nigeria, and Niger. This affects 2.8 million children, leaving them vulnerable to recruitment by armed groups and at risk of violence and exploitation. The situation is especially hard in areas like Burkina Faso, where 1 in 4 schools has shut down. Many children have had to continue their education in refugee camps, facing language barriers and difficult conditions. Improved security has allowed some schools to reopen in countries like the Central African Republic and Mali. Still, the overall situation remains challenging. Big Lots, a popular American retail chain with 1,400 stores, filed for bankruptcy on Monday. Big Lots plans to sell to Nexus Capital, a private equity firm, in an effort to reduce debts and close around 300 stores. Retail analysts highlighted the company's struggle with 16 straight quarters of declining sales. This downturn is partially due to high prices and a confusing product assortment compared to competitors like Walmart. The company faces $573 million in long-term debt and rising interest payments, leaving little financial safety net. For employees, the closures mean potential job losses, while consumers may lose convenient shopping locations and familiar products. Also in the U.S., school lunch fees are causing concern as families face unexpected costs when using cashless payment systems. Schools often work with companies that charge a fee per transaction, which can be a few dollars or several % of the lunch cost. This issue especially affects low-income families who pay higher fees due to frequent smaller transactions. Federal policy requires schools to offer cash or check options without fees, but there isn't enough transparency. Though families can request changes or fee negotiations, the dominance of a few large payment processing companies makes it challenging. Families could check if their school qualifies for the community eligibility provision, which allows the school to provide free breakfast and lunch for all students. More details are available on the U.S. Department of Agriculture's website. A recent report shows more than 5.5 million women in the U.S. have limited or no access to essential maternity care. Many counties, described as maternity care deserts, have no hospitals, birthing centers, or obstetric services. As a result, women in these regions are more likely to have preterm births and inadequate prenatal care, with low-income women and women of color most affected. Access issues are worsened by the closure of more than 100 hospital obstetric units since 2022, forcing families to travel long distances for critical care. The report also highlights a growing shortage of obstetricians, aggravated by restrictive abortion laws. Solutions like telehealth, better payment policies, and using midwives are suggested to improve care in these areas. Indonesia is planning to stop building hotels, villas, and nightclubs in several busy areas of Bali to prevent overdevelopment. This move aims to improve the quality of tourism and protect Bali's unique culture. Overcrowding has become a major issue, with about 200,000 foreigners living on the island, leading to increased crime and job competition. Since reopening post-pandemic, Bali has seen more visitors, with 541 hotels operating last year compared to 507 in 2019. This situation has raised concerns amongst Bali residents who are frustrated by disruptive tourist behavior and the impact on community life. The timeline for this measure is still being discussed, with suggestions it might last up to 10 years. In the Philippines, the rise of online lending platforms is causing concern for many borrowers. Clients have reported issues with harassment and data privacy violations. These platforms often charge high interest rates despite limits set at 15% per month. Many users have faced threatening calls, and their personal information has been mishandled. Concerns about data breaches have also surfaced, with platforms accessing personal emails and sending unauthorized messages. The National Privacy Commission previously shut down several apps for such violations, although recent compliance has lifted the bans. Despite complaints, authorities have been slow to act, with recent police raids uncovering foreign ownership of many platforms. Calls are rising for an overhaul of regulations to protect borrowers effectively. The UK's Supreme Court has ruled against Tesco, Britain's largest retailer, in its controversial fire and rehire strategy, marking a win for workers' rights. This practice involved terminating employee contracts only to rehire them on less favorable terms. The dispute began when Tesco tried to remove extra pay for some warehouse workers. The workers were offered lump sums to give up their pay entitlement from 2007, facing termination if they declined. Despite Tesco initially overturning an injunction to stop this, the final ruling restored the workers' rights. Tesco accepted the decision, stating its goal was to ensure fairness amongst all distribution workers. This decision brings attention to employment rights and fair pay practices in today's labor markets. In a small Finnish town, students are setting aside digital devices in favor of books in their backpacks, marking a shift in their educational journey. For many years, schools across Finland, renowned for their innovative teaching methods, offered free laptops to students as young as 11. However, with growing concerns amongst parents and educators about the impact of screen time on children, one town has opted for a refreshing change. The decision to return to traditional pen and paper came from the realization digital distractions often hinder focus in the classroom. Students admitted they would quickly finish assignments just to move on to games and social media. This shift away from screens has shown promising results, with students noting improved concentration and reduced eye strain.
Football season is now. Don't miss the action. Get all of your games in one place. At United TV, don't pay an arm and a leg to keep up with the action. For as little as $15.99 per month, you will get it all. With multi-screen viewing, make this season your winning season. Go to unitedtv.org and sign up today.
And now, the World Situation Report with Kimberly Gogan from the Office of the Guardian. Rumors of martial law and troops being sent to corral American citizens swirl again. What is the truth? The human mind, body, and soul is stronger than you are led to believe. Despite their greatest efforts, their programs failed. How the false consciousness worked. It's bigger than MKUltra. The deep state fractures the minds of their own families and children. How does this give them control over their bloodlines? What are they surrendering their children to? Now here's Kimberly Gogan with the Office of the Guardian, and she's joining us live. Hi, Kim.
Hi, everyone. How are you? Good to see everybody again. I guess I don't know if it's good to see me, but hey.
Yeah. Of course it is. We haven't seen you in a while, so it's awesome.
I know.
So what's going on?
I finally had a little bit of time this morning. Yesterday was a little bit brutal, day before. But there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. You know, as you know, 9/11 is a day where something very tragic happened in the United States, which affected a lot of countries. There was a market fall. There was thousands of people that died. There are thousands more that due to the inhalation of various chemicals during the alleged implosion that affected people on a long-term basis, you know, cancer and other illnesses. So very tragic event. I am aware that they have been trying to come up with another tragic event in the U.S. There are all kinds of ideas floating around as to what that is. And then they have an intention of declaring martial law. So the problem with that is that there's some conversations that have been taking place this week between the deep state, specifically here, global headquarters folks, also operatives folks, the SSP, and some members of the Dragon family. Those particular groups are all trying to maintain control over governments, or to, in some cases, you could say, become the government. And I don't mean we're going to see any of those people in a White House or in a parliament anywhere. I mean, they'd like to be the global governance. It's a position that no one has ever held, at least not a human walking this earth. There was always a governance structure, and we're going to talk a little bit about that today. And we're going to address some other things that have come up. Now, we all know that there was a presidential debate that happened. Yeah. The debate actually under the third constitutional law was actually not correct. It did not include all of those parties, presidential candidates that are running. Mm-hmm. There should have been members of the Green Party and independent there, and it should have included all of these people. So it's not a popularity contest. It's not a Democratic Republican thing. It's actually a presidential debate, which they fail to do every single time. Yeah. There are other parties that have chosen their candidates. There are parties that struggle to get onto the ballot. There's a People Party. There's a Green Party. There's other people that should have been there. Now, I'm sure they didn't invite these people because they're not in on the movie. You know, they are genuine people that believe they can make a difference if they become the president of the United States. Most of them think it's all about campaigns and donations and, you know, and they're doing all the things they're supposed to do constitutionally, unlike the two people that showed up. And I use the term constitution loosely. So in this particular debate, we have a person that doesn't look anything like the person did a few years ago that showed up. We also had this other woman show up, and they didn't really have anything to say. You know, there was a lot of talk about things that they allegedly are going to do. There was a lot of talk about banter back and forth about policies and that kind of stuff. But really, in our lives, that doesn't really mean a whole lot. I mean, you know, they never do what they say anyway. You know, Build Back Better. Does that sound familiar? Anybody get a new bridge in their town? Raise your hand. A road, a school, anything that was discussed? No, you did not. Did we get a mega first 4 years around? No, we really didn't. Kamala says when she gets into office, she's going to do X, Y, and Z. But isn't she in office now?
Fair point.
But anyway, I know there's a lot of people talking about it, so I just thought I'd kind of make our little comments on it. It's all a movie and it's all a show. It's all propaganda. And no matter who allegedly, in the eyes of the public, that one, quote unquote, won the debate, the deep state won. It doesn't matter if you're picking apples or oranges or blue or red or Republicans or otherwise, the deep state always wins. Mm-hmm. And it has been structured this way for ever since the inception of government as we know it. And I mean, even before we had the United States of America. You can go all the way back to quote unquote ancient biblical days where they pass over certain sons that are supposed to be the one in line for the throne. This is not new. It happens the way what you would call the deep state and even beyond structure this to be. So if you were brave enough to sit there for 3 hours and listen to this, God bless you. Because that was painful. I did not. I scanned through it the next day simply because I just wanted to see what was going on out there. The one thing it did do is cause some disruption between the military and the SSP, or Secret Space Program. And that disruption, I would say, in that fight, about, this person coming back into office really truly had nothing to do with the person who gets into a White House. It had more to do with the fact that the Von Kemp family, also known as Trump, is a renowned family according to the Order of the Black Sun. And in this particular case, they are still, and the reason why, because I got a lot of people that complained when I called the group the Nazi group. But the reason why is, if you don't know, Hitler had a handbook. It's called the AAIA handbook. That turned into the AAA handbook when America kind of became the world power that it is, or kind of was, or still is. I'm not sure there. And they would like to keep America as the world power, of course, under their control. They would not like to turn the U.S. dollar, rainbow dollar, Amero dollar, U.S. Treasury coin, XUSDTC coin, or any other American type currency over to the quote unquote government, and then have that currency serve the people. They just want to control a currency. And there's a huge amount of discrepancies amongst the ranking members of people who are having a meeting this weekend as to what the term continuance of government actually means. So this meeting, the theme of this meeting is about continuance of government. And my question is, which one are they talking about? That's my first question. Who are you talking about? Given the fact that there are some military folks of all ranks in all forms of government in attendance, it's unclear at this moment. Now, I thought for all of you that keep posting repeatedly on our social media about the return to the Constitution, I would like to also know what that means. By Constitution, I'm assuming you are talking about the United States Constitution that appears in the Library of Congress, the one that you can allegedly view. It's in there and you can see the old paper and whatnot. But if you take that one, you will read all about what a presidential election is supposed to be about, the legislative branch, the executive branch, and their functions, and et cetera, other, and Congress and financial things, and there's a lot of talk in there about everyone but you. It talks about the House of Alleged Representatives and how the representatives are going to represent, people. Maybe that's about as close as it gets to you. But it doesn't really have anything to do with you until you read the Bill of Rights, which now starts talking about you. I have the right to free speech, which we don't. I have the right to this and I have the right to that. So, now they're talking about what rights you have as a person. So, now let's talk about constitutions. I think this is important because it appears that a lot of our viewers would like to return to the original Constitution. So when they say that, their consciousness permeates throughout the multiverse, and they believe that a certain proportion of people would like to do that we need to uphold the Constitution. There's also a lot of people out there talking about election fraud. And I've been hearing it for a long time. So I just thought it was a good day based on the fact that there's a meeting coming up on Sunday to kind of talk a little bit about government, because I think these people might not be aware of what they would like to continue on with. Mm-hmm. And maybe they are. Okay. So the first Constitution of the United States falls under an old agreement of, I guess you would call it, the Constitution of the planet. So the first Constitution that everybody falls under, every nation in the world, has to do with the world governance of planet Earth. And it fell right in line and in lockstep with global martial law. This particular Constitution is 16,000 years old. So you can go back through the Bible, you can talk about Adam and Eve, you can talk about things you know in your history, and you are thinking that they are having a USSR turnover, for example. World War II happens, then the Cold War, countries change governments, turn to democracy. Whatever it is you're looking at, that is not what rules you in any way, shape, or form. So a continuance of that government, unfortunately, is not possible because those beings which made up that government, and there were 6 different races that participated in the governance of Earth for approximately 250,000 years, they don't exist. So I can assume when you say you'd like to have a continuance of government, you are not referring to these people now, or non-people. I know that there has been some talk with between some folks within the SSP, or Secret Space Program operatives, who feel that they are qualified because a lot of these groups have been around for 5,000 or more years. Believe it or not, we have had the Secret Space Program on Earth long before we had governments, as you know them today. They have participated on behalf of what you would consider global governance. They have worked with these people. They do have a lot of information that most militaries and governments do not have. They are aware of the fact that they used to go to certain places on Earth and have meetings with beings that do not look like you or I. They feel, because they reported to these beings, that they are superior. They know more about the way the world works than the rest of you. Well, over the last 3 years of watching UNN and back in the day, Life Force meetings and everything else, you have learned an awful lot about how the world really works. There are some things I don't say because I don't want to help our non-friends. But I have to get the world to a point where our non-friends can have nothing left to act with. Okay, so do they believe that they should be the new third, I guess you would say, or first, if you want to put it in line that way, constitutional government? The answer to the question is yes, they do.
The SSP you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. they feel that by supporting a member of the von Kempf family, which is one of the high-ranking bloodlines in the Order of the Black Dragon or Black Sun, that should be sufficient enough to appease beings that no longer exist. Or because of their knowledge, that's right. So this is what you're watching play out in front of your face. So they feel that they are qualified to run the world. What has become apparent to the rest of the world and other governance on the planet is they have made some serious mistakes. So they did promise the last time we spoke, which was on Monday, they did promise that they were going to have a gate. They had long talks with the Japanese Black Dragon group about this gate opening, and nothing happened. So come Tuesday morning, their credibility went into the toilet. Maybe they don't know all the things they say they know. Maybe this information that they have has been tainted. And maybe they shouldn't be in charge because they don't know. And moreover, the failure on the same day in the evening with this debacle, movie, show, however you want to say it, further solidified the fact that they are losing their grip. Without underlying frequencies, direct control of consciousness of people just aren't buying that anymore. They even came out to say the following day, it was announced by whatever the Trump people, I call them the Trump people, they're people, I just don't know what else to call them because it's not the original person. So they came out and said that there'll be no more debates.
Right. I heard that.
Now, technically, under the third Constitution, which we'll get to here in a minute, you don't have the right to say that. You can't, as a presidential candidate, just decide, I'm not coming anymore.
Yeah, he seems to do that a lot, doesn't he? Or it, whatever. They do that a lot.
Yeah, and he claims that when a prize fighter wins a fight, the loser of said fight automatically comes out and says, hey, I want a rematch. No, honey, it's called the Constitution, sweetheart. You're supposed to have more than one debate. You're supposed to. And I don't know if there's a specific number, but hey, when it comes to the SSP, they don't really care. To me, it sounds like, someone that probably didn't meet his own followers or their own followers' expectations. And sales of gold Trump shoes is probably falling off a little bit following that. So let's talk about, now we know about Constitution number 1. So let's talk about Constitution number 2. Constitution number 2 talks more about humans and world government, meaning it would talk about groups like the Covens, the Coven Masters, Family Masters, and the Order of the Dragon and the Order of the Black Sun, and their continuation and control over governments worldwide. These are the people that the remaining folks kind of know who they are. They probably have seen them. They've probably seen a lot of SSP operatives too. The SSP operatives would have been at this level in the past. They were not considered part of the global governance that existed before, yet they were the tier down. Therefore, underneath this, you have multiple constitutions. You have one that controls military and intelligence agencies worldwide. So when you say the U.S. military is going to save the United States, you are incorrect. Number one, They are not part of the United States government. No, they are not. They fall under the governance of militaries and agencies worldwide. They are not part of here to protect U.S. citizens. That's not part of their original constitution. They are reporting right now to the arm of the second constitution holders known as the Blue Dragon, and they have since 1864. So this is not new. Matter of fact, before that, it was you could say that there was another tier when it came to the U.S. Involving the King or Queen of England before that time, before 1864. So we just went from the Queen or official crown, I guess you would say, of England, over to the Crown Corporation known as the Rothschild family Etal. So we have technically been under the Blue Dragon family control for a long time. That is where our Democratic Party comes from, eventually on down the road. They make it out like there was Tea Party and taxes and all this stuff. None of that really mattered. That was just for the movie to make it look good, like you people were protesting against something that were alive at that time. Okay, next, there is also a constitution for control of the financial system of the world. This constitution has nothing to do with the United States government, nor does it have to do with the Federal Reserve. Believe it or not, we're still not there yet. The Federal Reserve is a tool that was created 100 years ago and some change to control all currencies worldwide on behalf of Constitution number 2. Well, now we're on 3 or 4, aren't we? But the financial system of the world is controlled by the global governance, and then on down from that, you had the governance of the planet, and then you have the people we see on TV dancing around and talking about things. Next, we have a different constitution for control over governments under Constitution number 2. This is your political sector. These are the people that would control who gets into office, who's not in office, who would be best suited to be in office. And there are agreements in there where you bounce back and forth between red and blue. There are no other colors here, as far as they're concerned. The red and blue, folks, is a toss-up between the Order of the Black Sun and the red, or the Order of the Dragon and the blue. But either way, global governance controls them all. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't really make a difference who's in, how many terms people can serve, all that kind of stuff that's in now the Constitution that most people can't wait to have, So the Constitution that you know about talks all about how the government is going to act. Well, there's a separate third Constitution level down. Now we're now in the next tier down. That the one that everybody talks about is we the people are going to elect these people, and here's how they're going to act, and here's what they can do, can't do, martial law, here's all the stuff, right? Then you have a financial constitution for the United States. The Treasury Department and the Federal Reserve are not part of the government. That's separate. That's a separate governance that falls under a separate section of the controllers and constitutional people and governance of the planet. Now you also have a separate military and agency, and this is every country. This is not just the United States. These 3 constitutions are the ones that people in alt media talk about. They just don't understand them. They think that one is for a corporation and one is the original one, which was not a corporation. That's what they say. Yeah. And in part, I can say, you may think that because the first constitution, or the first agreement, I should say, with governance was underneath a king or a queen. It wasn't necessarily, under a corporation known as Crown Corporation. Right. So I can see the fine line of what they're saying, but really when you go up one level of constitutions, it doesn't matter at that point. So my question is for the people that are holding this meeting this weekend, Which government are you asking me about? Because that is my first question. Who are you asking me about? Which government are you referring to? I would like to know. And I'm assuming by even the possibility of talking to me about this, I can assume you are obviously looking at the governance of the contenders for government number 1 in the highest tier, and the contenders for government number 2. And then you're now also looking at the governance, which is where you sit, Joint Chiefs of Staff, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, on this level here. So I'm assuming you're probably starting to question those that would like to be in governance 2 and 1, because that's what I've heard. I've heard a lot of chatter that they gave them until Friday to perform. Otherwise, they're going to have to look at other solutions.
Friday meaning today?
Yep. Do I think this is genuine? Or are these people trying to be contestants number 1 or 2? I don't know at this point. I guess I won't find out till Sunday. But from the looks of it, they do have some people from Congress in there wanting to have discussions. I think they're talking about government number 3. 3, 4, and 5, I guess you would call it, because there's still 3 separations of governance there of the country, and never the 2 shall meet, by the way. Now, the government part, where they have Congress and they blah, 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 blah about budgets and blah, 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 no one really cares in the financial sector, honestly, what they say. Really, it's a whole separate thing, especially because the world had been under martial law for many, many years. They would probably care more about what the military wanted, and then it would still have to go up another level to the global governance people, who actually around this time of year would now start spitting out their orders to the next people down. And this is what I mean by this is the time of year for family meetings. They've got bigger problems coming up, okay? So the quote-unquote Tier 2 people would have already received, in the past, their orders. The orders would have come down to Constitution people number 2 by now, and they would be having a 2-week meeting discussing the orchestration, who they're going to call, if they're going to change out a head of state or move things around based on doing exactly what they were told by the global governments, the real government, the real power of the planet. Mm-hmm. Now, these people have been running around trying to go to those other former meetings. We've been talking about this for months. No one shows up. No orders show up. And if they did tell people they got orders, they're lying. That's a fact. They are lying to you. They did not get it. And that is why no money came to fund you people down the road. You can sit there and wait for a gateway. You can go around in a circle. You can do whatever you want to do. You can do some chanting, hold some crystals in your hand, and go to weird old black church in Romania and other places that you go to. But unfortunately, nothing happens every time. And you've been doing this now. I've been watching you personally do this for 3 years. And nothing you said came true. Nothing. Not one thing came true. Now, since I bailed on you and no longer wanted to participate in Constitution 1, 2, or 3, you've been scrambling and scraping and trying to scam and install strange fake servers all over the place and fake like you have money. And, everybody's talking about the reason why I listed all those U.S. currencies is because that's what the discussions are, they're figuring out which one is going to work. The answer to the question is none. None are going to work. And is that going to fix anything? Is that going to change anything other than the fact that you now feel qualified to be constitutional holder number 2? or even number one in some cases. And you figure if you can get control of a country's currency, that you can now control its financial system. And then eventually, because it is the dollar we're talking about here, you can eventually control the entire world. Now, unfortunately, that is not going to solve your problem. Tell you why. This is important for these people before they get into their meeting to really, truly understand. Please, for the love of God, listen for once. They need to understand if you have X amount of US dollars in circulation, let's say for illustration purposes, I don't have that number in front of me, but let's just say we have 13 trillion United States dollars in circulation, be them numbers on a screen or be it physical cash floating around the world that is valid cash. Okay. In addition to that, we have many United States dollar denominated derivatives and bonds and government bonds and treasury notes, and you've got notes in your pocket if you're here in America, and half the world uses dollars or sees dollars, in your various countries too. Now, if I change the name of the US dollar and I call it the Hostess Twinkie, that doesn't change the fact that you have to now replace all of the dollars in circulation, including dollar-denominated instruments, with the Hostess Twinkie. Let's just say I agreed, right? Now, that being said, how does that change anything? How does that change the financial system of the world? The only change it makes is that now we have people that have no idea on how macro or microeconomics works being in charge of your financial system of the planet. They just see things like the Federal Reserve used to print unlimited fiat currency. We'll be able to print unlimited fiat currency too. Wrong. There's still a debt clock. There's still, you can fake it till you make it, but I'm going to tell you right now, that's not possible. So countries like Saudi Arabia and Iran and other countries that are trying to cash in their pallets of super notes on a promise made by one of these Constitution contestants number 1 and Constitution contestants number 2, that are now proposing these deals to Constitutions number 3, insert country name here, they're all the same. They all have the same 3 divisions. They're all the same. It doesn't matter if there's a king there or a queen or a democracy or a Republican or a whatever communist party. It doesn't make a difference to me. So you see what I'm trying to say. There's replacing one name, Hostess Twinkie in this scenario, for the US dollar doesn't get you there. Yeah. Now, there is only so much metal on this planet, including the metal we call gold. Now, the metal that we call gold, and the majority of it is actually under our control. Because you can't build a financial system, disperse energy from a financial system that is a quantum sentient AI system without control of the gold, 100%. Now, I do know that they've really tried hard to get a hold of them some gold in the last few days, and it really didn't work out, and they don't really understand all the things that gold powered on this planet. Yeah, and what ratios are required, So as far as gold backing your Hostess Twinkie, it's still not going to change supply and demand laws that are the algorithm that runs within a system. Not only that, it's already showing as lean in the system. The reason why they went off the gold standard many, many years ago is because they leaned every vein of gold in this planet and then some, whether in an off-ledger way or an on-ledger way. And they had realized that without a regenerating energy source, now they're just selling the energy is what they're doing. So they're taking all the energy to support an AI system. This is what the governance number 1 did. This had nothing to do with you people. They sold the energy, essence, consciousness, matter, frequency, off to an let's just say a maleficent AI system to power it, allowed for human implants and neural implants and receptors and all kinds of things into the celestials on this planet, to the point where we were basically walking cyborgs. I mean, there was a lot more that happened. I'll talk about that in a minute because I want to finish governments first. But that was done way above their head. So they often look at me and they want to know what I'm doing. And the reason why I don't tell them what I'm doing is because, quite frankly, all of this was over your head anyway. And expiring those covenants and those agreements, and there were thousands of them that we've done in the last few years, is kind of none of the deep state's business. It's none of the financial, definitely not tier 3, SSP having some, or secret space program folks having some limited control or limited access to bother people with diseases and other things that they do, made them feel very powerful, especially after World War II, and a lot of things were changing at that time. But really, that was a permission. It wasn't a right. And at any time, as they know and are seeing, their control systems are dissipating, the effects they have on humans are dissipating, repairs of telomeres and neurotransmitters and all the other things that made their lovely world possible are going away. And it's going to continue until it's finished. So, I don't know which continuance of what government they're going to talk about, but I'll find out and tell you on Monday. But at this point, it's like I said, I am now in the chair of Government 1. And quite frankly and honestly, I'm the only one here other than Source. There's no boss, there's no alien race, there's no nothing. It's just me. And I know that confuses them greatly, and I can understand why they're confused and why their ego doesn't permit them to believe they've been beat by a girl. But I'm not just a girl. And I'm backed by a pretty powerful creator in this universe, just as they were powered by the anti-creator in the past. And we're going to talk about how that all happened here in a minute and why their head's not right. But anyway, the point is that we will see. It is not up to me, and this is what they fail to understand. I have given in the past, haven't done it in a few years, but I have given lots of orders to lots of governments for nearly a decade. I did it. Not quite a whole decade. I'd say I probably did it from about 2013, 2012, 2011. So yeah, I guess you could say 9 years. I did it for 9 years. And not one of you tier 3 governments followed anything I asked for. So I could call you on that line. I could call you on a diplomatic line. I can call you on the phone that only the aliens used to call you from, and you still wouldn't listen to me. So tell me why today is the day that I should decide that giving you orders and money again is going to be a good idea. Tell me why, because I can honestly tell you this is already a no. Giving them control over Constitution number 4 here with the financial system is not on my list of things to do, because I see what you're doing and I know you're not capable. And I'm not going to let you disrupt that for 8 billion people living on this planet just because you want to have a big ego and have a big job. And you can keep your ego. It doesn't really belong here. And I know you think you're special, and I'm going to tell you exactly why you think you're special here in a few minutes. But I'm going to address a few things that this is causing, because it's leaking out into the people, and there's a lot of fear going around. So I'm going to bring up this little message that was left for us on our YouTube channel. And this person is basically questioning whether I know what I'm doing. Do I have any idea what's coming? And they're basically saying that 35 million soldiers are going to come into the United States or be in the United States, or 35 million soldiers are going to corral U.S. citizens under martial law. You know, this in a nutshell. There's some other, I don't know what WS is, and a few other things he mentions or she mentions. But there is a lot of fear going around, and it's been going around for years, and it's the same promise always. You know, martial law will be declared and life will be great. Right?
Yeah.
So, first of all, I would like to point out a few facts here. Number one, the United States military's enlisted persons are standing at about a number of around a little bit less than or 3 million or so people. Okay, so we're still 32 million soldiers short. So if we declared martial law here in the United States, this person is concerned that 35 million soldiers are going to corral U.S. citizens, you know, all the fanfare, take our guns, blackouts everywhere, blah, 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 blah. Now, I can tell you with a pretty much 100% certainty, if I add up the worldwide militaries, that's every country in the world that has a military, and I add up all their enlisted persons, that means that these are current active military in every nation in the world, I come up with slightly more than 27 million, maybe a little less than 28, somewhere around there on any given day. Remember, people leave, people go in and out, and I'm not monitoring everything all the time, but I can pretty much say that would give me a maximum of 28 million people. So now I'm up to 30 million possible soldiers if every single military in the world sent their military to the United States to corral U.S. citizens. So I can tell you, I highly doubt that's going to happen. And a lot of these countries don't even get along with each other, you know, and I highly doubt you're going to get all those troops. Pretty much because all governments are bankrupt too. You know, I don't even know if half those governments can afford the fuel to get the people here on an aircraft or have an aircraft for their military, for that matter, to leave where they're at. So that's probably not going to happen. Now, I will address this viewer personally because I understand people have concerns. There's a lot of fear that's always pushed around throughout the alt media consistently. For a while there, it's every 2 weeks. And that it's been every 2 weeks. It's going to happen since 2013 that I am personally aware of. So every 2 weeks, they're going to get the green light. There's going to be martial law, blah, blah, blah. And then we roll again 2 weeks later. And then it's the same thing with the Q people. They do the same thing. You know, it's on the new moon, it's the full moon, there's an alignment with Uranus, a solar eclipse, you know, then there's going to be blackouts, and the EBS or irritable bowel syndrome is pretty much all people are getting from these people these days. Weirdo things about gateways opening and all kinds of stuff. And pretty much everything they have to say never happens. Yeah. So fear, false evidence appearing real. But I will say, if you have questions about some things you're seeing or reading, you can ask those questions. We have our own social media where you can ask those questions. And if you're concerned, truly concerned, but I want you to do something for me first. I want you to, when someone says 35 million soldiers are coming into the United States, I would like for you to count the amount of soldiers available to come into the United States first. I would also like you to take a look at possibly what a blackout would be. Are they talking about an internet blackout? Are they talking about an electrical blackout? If so, and you feel the need and you are afraid that this might actually happen after 13 years of saying so, then get yourself a generator, save up, put it on a credit card. Hell, Jesus is coming back or something. There's going to be an apocalypse. I don't know. And maybe you need to be ready with that generator. But if you feel safe and secure by doing that, then go ahead and do that. But when you ask the question, educate yourself first. Really. Don't yell at me or what am I going to do about this? The answer to the question is I spent 15 minutes looking up the data, and I said, well, that's not a possibility. That's not happening any more than I am going to stand here and prevent the tooth fairy from giving money to your children when their teeth fall out because I'm afraid of capitalism in our youth. So this is just as valid a reason as what you're asking me about. So am I doing anything to stop this from happening? Well, I also know that if this were to happen, and let's just say, well, let's half it and call it 15 million soldiers are going to invade the United States, right? Or 17 in this case, 17.5 million. Let's just say that was going to happen. All of Europe, all the NATO countries, everybody participated, and all these soldiers are corralling American citizens now here in the United States. Well, that's going to cost the world government, Constitution number 2 or 1, or the fake one be contestants of 1, I don't know. But it's going to cost them somewhere probably around $100 million a day. So unless they have $100 million a day, that's not including, the corralling, the alleged FEMA camps and the concentration camps, and the Holocaust is going to now be for everyone, every American citizen, or whatever it is they're saying. That's going to cost an awful lot of money, and I know they don't have it. So am I aware that constantly, every full moon, new moon, alignment with Uranus, there is going to be a declaration of martial law? I am fully well aware of that. That is the plan. So we're going to kind of get into that in a minute, but I want to bring up a video which we played before. We played this video probably about a year and a half ago, and it really lays out. This video is actually from 1948, and it was made for high school kids, and it was to talk about how they're going to structure the media. So let's take a look at that. I know it's probably 5-7 minutes long. It's not too long, but it's good information, and it will help you with your discernment. And for those of you that have already seen this, maybe go get yourself a cup of tea.
Perhaps I can help you, Chuck. I think the election was a victory for good government. It might also be called a victory for propaganda. But that would have been equally true if our opponent had won.
But how can you study it?
Well, you can begin by investigating the techniques of propaganda. Here, I've listed some of the main ones. Glittering generalities.
What is a glittering generality?
That headline you were quoting, a victory for good government. Good government is a phrase we use many times during the campaign. We said the mayor stood for good government and promised good government.
But it's true, isn't it?
What's true? What does good government mean? Is the mayor's idea of good government the same as yours?
I see. It's a glittering generality.
One of the best.
There's another.
Yes. And why do you suppose our opponents chose that phrase?
I guess because everybody likes a real American.
Right. And they wanted to transfer that liking for a real American to Mr. Butler. A day or so after that poster came out, I said in one of my campaign speeches, our opponent advertises himself as a real American. I say he is unreal, unrealistic. He is a visionary, a theorist, a dreamer. He is so thirsty for public office that like a weary traveler in the desert, he sees a mirage, and he is trying to sell it to you as real. There. Now what would you call that?
That's name-calling, visionary, theorist, dreamer.
That's right. And those are very polite names. For my collection of propaganda materials, I've made a special record of part of one of Mr. Butler's radio speeches. Mayor Cooper asks that he be judged by his performance in office. Very well. Let's ask him who was mayor when the municipal waterworks fell into such a state of disrepair that the whole town was without water for 2 days. Let's ask him. But no, let's not. It might embarrass him. That's what we call card stacking. Cooper was mayor when the pumping station broke down, but it was the men in office before him who allowed it to get into such a rundown condition, and it finally gave way before he could get anything done.
And card stacking is choosing some facts and leaving out others and arranging them to suit your purpose.
Now, did you see our little campaign movie?
Yes, a couple of times.
Well, let's look at it again.
Land sakes. A body hardly has time enough. The house to clean, and the washing to do, and the men folks to feed. They like their chocolate cakes, too. But I do want to take time to tell you that I've known Dick Cooper ever since he was knee-high to a grasshopper. He comes of a good, respectable family, just as honest as the day is long. And he knows our town. He's one of us. That's why I'm going to vote for Mayor Cooper. And all my friends are going to vote for him, too.
Recognize the technique?
That must be what you call plain folks.
That's right. You'll find many versions of the appeal based on the common man, the man on the street, log cabin to president. Now let's look at the rest of the movie.
Yes, Mrs. Hamline is voting for Mayor Cooper. Her friends are voting for Mayor Cooper. Your friends are voting for Mayor Cooper. The people know what they want, and what they want is Mayor Cooper. Don't you be left behind. Get on board the Victory Special. Vote for Mayor Cooper and ride with him to victory.
That ending's easy to spot. It's the bandwagon.
Yes, the propaganda we've been talking about is easy to detect. But a great deal of propaganda is much more hidden, much harder to detect.
That's what's bothering me. Even in a small local election, there's so much propaganda. That poster, a real American. It uses a transferred device. Does that mean it isn't true?
Not necessarily. Evaluating propaganda isn't that simple. Recognizing the technique is one step. Another step is to know the purpose. What is the purpose here?
That's easy. To get people to vote for Butler.
Yes, to persuade people that Butler is the better man, to move them to vote for him. In short, to sell Mr. Butler to the voters. You'll find that the purpose of most propaganda is to persuade people to believe something, to do something, or to buy something.
All right, but it still doesn't answer my question.
No. Your next step, and it's a big one, is to get the facts.
Well, is he a real American?
Howard Butler was born in this country. He obeys its laws. He's a good citizen. Yes, he is a real American. The same can be said for Richard Cooper. So ask yourself whether the facts support the purpose. Do they support the transfer of feeling from real American to Mr. Butler over Mr. Cooper?
No, I guess not.
Well, that's your fourth step. Weigh the facts against the purpose and the technique.
I think I understand. To know whether propaganda is good or not, whether it's true or not, I should know the purpose, recognize the technique, get the facts, and judge the purpose and technique by the facts.
But when you want the facts about live political battle, don't come to a campaign manager.
I might do it at that. But I will also go and see your opposition.
Well, that's all right. Whenever you're tracking down propaganda, get as many different points of view as you can.
Do you know something?
What?
I think that it might be interesting to make a really serious study of propaganda.
I find it interesting, and there's plenty to study. Here I have just a few of the many books on the subject. You can read them. You can keep your eyes and ears open for little bits of propaganda. And, of course, you can study whole propaganda campaigns. Here are a few on which I've been gathering material. Hitler and Nazi Germany had a campaign of propaganda that ran over many years.
Then there's a wealth of propaganda to study on the subject of Russia and communism. There's propaganda to study in our own American elections, national as well as local, and in many of the major issues on which elections often hinge.
Well, if I don't learn about propaganda, it won't be because there's no way to study it.
That's right, Chuck. Remember the techniques of propaganda and use the procedure we out is a powerful force. So powerful that your study of propaganda is important not only to you, but to me and to the world.
Be like Chuck, everyone.
Yeah, I call this critical thinking. I always tell people, question everything. Not in a negative, nasty sense, but ask those kind of questions. It's the same thing that he's talking about as well. So.
But ask them of yourself first. You know, and I've got my little whiteboard out here. I'm going to talk about this just for a second before we move on to martial law. So in this, they talked about using adjectives that people recognize as a positive thing. Mm-hmm. They could say, good government, good pharmaceutical, good for your health, good this, good that. It doesn't matter what it is that they're trying to feed to you. They constantly tell you how good it is. And then they show you pictures nowadays, because that's during radio days. You know, nowadays they show you pictures on TV of people jogging in the sun, feeling good, throwing their kids in the air, you're kissing each other on a park bench, and they're really talking about psoriasis medication. But you know what? It's good.
That's what it sounds like. It sounds like every single pharmaceutical commercial. You just described it.
Yeah. I know. And it's all good, right? It's all good. It's all good because they said it's good. And you know what? You're watching this, listening to the laundry list may cause death and liver failure and everything else. You can say, but I certainly feel good while I'm watching these people run through the park with daisies in their hair. Oh, isn't it just beautiful? You know? The other thing is that blows me away. I have been an American my whole life. I have left the country several times and come back, never left citizenship, but I've been an American my whole life. And I certainly have been an American for the last 8 years. I have. I remember distinctly orange people standing up on TV telling me about Operation Warp Speed and vaccines and masks and locking us down and all that started and I know about thousands of hairdressers that went out of business and because they just rented chairs and that's how they supported their family, and then they tried to sell color and things outdoors and they were shut down by the government. I remember these stories. We put out some of these stories back in that day. So how can you tell me there's 90,000 alternative media people we call everyday folk are pretending like it never happened?
Yeah.
That never happened. You know? Now, I can tell you about Constitution People number 2 and Constitution People number 1, but still, let's just say I don't know about that stuff because I don't watch UNN. I don't know that. You know, I don't really understand why we had multiple constitutions for multiple purposes. And I'm going to tell you, as an everyday, if I just take my head out of that and I go back to just being an average everyday folk, you have lost your mind, people. You spend 3 hours, 2 hours listening to people with boots, and all these people give you agency propaganda. Constantly. You run your lives by this stuff. You know, and the people that watch it are just as bad. And they sit there and they tell people prep. Get your whatevers, you know. The Q movement in this video in 1948, they start talking about communism and Russia, right? He says at the end, these are great examples of propaganda campaigns. Well, it's still called Operation Trust to this day. You call it the Q movement. It's the exact same protocol. It worked the first time. Everybody bought working for the state, working for the man, you know? You know, and then he goes on further to talk about Hitler and his propaganda campaign of nationalism. And what are they doing to you people right now? I mean, this looks like a combo burger to me. You got a little bit of fries, the Nazi propaganda campaign, you've got some communism campaign in there, and you got a whole lot of stuff. And I'm not dogging just that. I'm talking about everything that comes out. Question everything. Do your research. And just because they say this person, what is a fake American? Does anybody know what a fake American is? Are those portal people? Is that a holographic person, an alien? What is a not real American? You know, you're real, you're walking around, you can poke yourself if you're an American. Yeah, yep, that's real. I mean, I'm going to blow your mind in a minute when I tell you it might not be, but anyway, the point is that, you know, they come out with these great sayings, MAGA, make America great again, you know, or build back better, or whatever it is they're telling you. And this isn't just about governments. This is all natural. Well, bugs are natural. Crickets are a natural occurring thing, and they want to call it protein too, and that's all natural. You know, again, remember, just because they're saying it and it sounds good to you doesn't mean it's all natural. Natural is a word you've come to recognize as a positive. Oh, it's natural. Oh, it's natural to, you know, do this or natural to do that, but we don't even know what natural is anymore. Unless you discern your version of natural and you figure out what it is you're looking at, is that natural? You know, is it natural that somebody grieves, and for how long? You know, I mean, I'm just not talking about health and pharmaceuticals or whatever. What is natural anymore? It's natural that all kids go to public school. That's natural. It's natural that they bring back homework and so much of it that in their little bodies, they can't even carry the backpack home, let alone complete 3, 4, 5 hours of work at night, and they're exhausted. You know, that's not natural either. But everybody believes that it's just real and it's just natural. Trusted news sources. Now, this is also a big thing, right? Trusted news, right? I trust Bill. I trust CNN. They use all the right colors, you know. Stop, red, alert, red. Tied to the Order of the Black Sun, Ted Turner, member of the Order of the Black Sun. I mean, it's color wars for your brain. Fox is blue. I mean, this isn't hard to understand. But because they have big studios and they're in a big place, you trust them. Then you have a lot of leaving of information out. You know, you never know. Maybe the 5 things that they told you are the truth, but what about the 167 they didn't tell you? You know, same thing goes for your dancing people commercials. What didn't they tell you? Now they're allegedly forced to tell you, but then I can't help but think that that's not good for sales.
Right.
But because the frequency comes through the TV at the same time you're watching this stuff. And the same thing goes for YouTube. We have been shadow banned, our social media, even in the prior networks, you know, we were shadow banned the whole time. We have one look at a video and at 8 o'clock at night and it has 14,000 views and the next day it has 1,100. How does that happen? Did people unwatch it? Did they rewind it? You know, what makes it do that? You know, it's the same thing. You and an alt media world look at trusted by the number of views it got. I know you don't think you do, but you do. Yep. You certainly do. You think because 114,000 people watched it, then that means it must be the truth. Wow.
And that's why those social media algorithms are so important to the deep state, because they can flip a switch and change those numbers. And like you said, reduce our numbers or anyone else out there that's trying to get the truth out.
Yep. I can tell you some very popular people that report on, say, the revaluation of currency. Mm-hmm. Their numbers are not real, 100% not real. I do know that DARPA and those folks pretty much run that, created all those algorithms, have all the back doors to those algorithms, and whoever they like or their people, versus people that might be telling you something that's true, But anyway, I kind of call that in a way part of the trusted news scam. Now, other things that people look as trusted news, they look at people who are famous, that became famous maybe on a news channel, and you know who I'm talking about, or became famous on the History Channel, or became famous on a what we all come to know as narrative channels, and then they come out and they do a podcast, or maybe they were in an agency and you just don't know it because everybody looks like an MMA fighter,
What? Who are you?
You're laughing at me.
No, I'm laughing with you. Oh, that's funny.
Everybody shaves their head and sits with their arms crossed the same way they did on the History Channel. I can tell you for a fact, and I'm just going to call it like it is because these people hate me anyway. For a fact, the Hunting Hitler series was put on and created and narrated by the CIA. That's a fact. I know that the CIA approves every movie script and every news script that goes out. That's a fact. Now, that's still governance number 3. So it has to go all the way from, not to, from narrative 2, Constitution 2, which then came from Constitution 1. For the whole year, the orders and all the money to do it came out all that way prior. The one thing I will tell you that I have noticed, speaking of quote unquote trusted news, ain't a whole lot out there for the last 3 weeks. You still got some people talking about Trump this and Trump that, and now they're going to talk about the debate for a while and how Trump's right and he shouldn't do another debate and blah, 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 blah. And there's nothing. Not a whole lot.
What does that mean to you, Kim? What do you make of that?
Well, the Secret Space Program front organization is DARPA, essentially. You could also say you're looking at the NSA, because you'd be talking about the ACIO, front organization, and all your atypical front people. That tells me that the DARPA folks that are participating in the alternative media narrative are not getting clear information or new information from Constitution contender number 1, the Secret Space Program. They said they had orders for all this stuff. Now, a lot of these, and I'm going to say it anyway, a lot of these alternative media people get paid to promote the narratives. Not all, but a lot of them do. Whether they sell Trump paraphernalia or they're doing this or doing that, we refrain here from talking about government. We just have. I don't know what the answer is there. We talk about the real government and what's happening in the real government that actually does affect your life. We don't talk as much about politicians and that kind of thing because it's almost not relevant. And I'm going to show you why it's not relevant in here when we talk about propaganda. So now we're going to talk about card stacking. What do they want to emphasize about this person, or we want to not emphasize about this person or these people or this group or this, a black man, shot a police officer on Tuesday night, a white police officer or whatever it is. This is also card stacking because you don't know that this person was beating his son, or you don't know that maybe he didn't actually shoot him. Maybe that didn't really happen. But, they start stacking the cards to make you feel a certain way. Now you're angry at white police officers. You're angry at black men with guns. You're angry about Chicago, wherever it happened. And I hate Chicago now, and I'm never going back there because I don't like Chicago, or whatever. It's all about making you feel a certain way so that you react in a certain way. Mm-hmm. Maybe you have a YouTube channel and you get on YouTube and you start talking about it, or you start watching more videos about black men who shoot white police officers. And before you know it, you're all wrapped up into equal rights for equal people, and you're reaching out to Black Lives Matter and All Lives Matter and Animals Lives Matter and whatever else it is you're doing, and you're now feeding into the same system that's created to make you feel like you're doing something and you're really going nowhere. Because governance number one, it already set that narrative 15 years ago. And matter of fact, I came across a paper that I had received from, let's just say, someone very high up in the Mormon church. Because I was actually looking for, I have a copy of Constitution 1, and I have a copy of Constitution number 2 in my files somewhere. One I ran across in Malta, the other one I ran across, let's just say, somewhere else, right? So I do have those copies. I'm going to continue to look for them. They're just deep, probably in one of my old hard drives, and I just ran out of time finding it this morning. But when it comes to card stacking, I have a copy also of a report that's about a decade and a half old that came from a very high-ranking member of the Illuminati, or the Order, who also happens to be on the High Council of the Mormon Church. And they actually told us exactly what they were going to do, what their set of instructions were, and what at the time they got paid to do. So, yeah, it's just very interesting. Again, this was 10 years old, and some of these events have yet to happen. So my point being is, the narratives that you're seeing about the black man shooting the white police officer, or the white police officer shooting the black man, or whatever it is, or insert, we all no longer eat sausage, or just whatever the narrative is, it doesn't matter what it is. You got to remember it's stacking. You don't have all the information. If they're purposely labeling someone or something or some group or some country or some state, understand that you need to start looking for card stacking. What do they want you to believe about all Russians? What do they want you to believe about the Israelis? What do they want you to believe? And start thinking logically. What is the population of the state of Israel? How many people are in there? How many people are enlisted in the Israeli Defense Forces, the IDF? How many soldiers does that make on the ground? How many people are still in Gaza? All this information is out there at your fingertips. I'm not saying every source of information is accurate, but they don't really care about tweaking the numbers because nobody looks at anything but the glittering headlines.
Yeah.
Why do you think Q, even the Operation Trust, as it's called, why do you think Operation Trust gives you 4 lines? Blackout, EBS, today, October 15th, we won, Q. What is that anyway, But it leaves you to fill in the blanks and fill in all the information. And it's been going on for a long time. Here in America, they just call it Q now. Yeah. You could call it Russian propaganda. You can call it Nazi propaganda. You can call it communist propaganda. You can call it Project Mockingbird propaganda. You can call it whatever you want to call it, but it ain't no different. It's just got a different label now. We're going to reach out and capture all the patriots. Is what we're going to do, because those people have guns and they could be scary. So we're going to keep promising them something's going to happen tomorrow so that they'll just sit there and do nothing.
Yeah, it's like they try to lure you in with information that might be real, so you trust them, right? Because some of the stuff, the information Q has put out is legit. I mean, we learned about horrible things, that the deep state has done and what they've done to children, and a lot of that through Q. But then they use that trust. That's why it's called Operation Trust. They build that trust, and then they will lure you to thinking other things than that, this is your savior then or whatever. And then that part is, but you have that trust built up because they told you about the bad people hurting children.
When it's actually them doing it.
They left that
That's
part
how
out.
they know. That's how they know. But, if we go back to days when we were kids, Sonny, and we were going to school, and, if there was a friend of your parents or whatever that said that, well, I don't think communism is that bad, they got a lot of good ideas, they're no longer in your friend circle. Or say they were immigrants from Russia, Everybody's going to talk to them anymore because we're in a Cold War with your country, and you just happen to be from that same landmass, therefore you're an awful person. And matter of fact, that's how well propaganda works. And matter of fact, on one of my trips there, I told you this before, but I had a friend of mine that called me and said, "Oh my God, you're there? You're in Russia? Oh my God, you're going to die. The communists are going to kill you." I had another friend, I was having conversations with some people in Hong Kong and in China at the time. This was, before I learned about the families, but this is how I learned about the families. And one of my older friends that was, probably about my mom's age, so 20 some odd years older than me, says to me, they're going to take you in. They're going to arrest you for talking to communist people, and I'm like, okay, so they're going to arrest me for talking to communist people. I'm not talking to the Communist Party. I'm talking to just a person.
Yeah.
Crazy person at that, but anyway, but you see my point. The propaganda is real, and it really can spin you and your life and your consciousness into a tailspin to the point where you don't trust anything anymore. You don't trust yourself anymore. Next, everyday folk. Welcome to the alternative media and its creation by the DARPA organization known as the SSP and Constitution number 1 people as ordered it. All social media was created for you. Okay? It got a little bit out of control. Now we have weirdo fact checking that wants to tell me I didn't have salmon for dinner if I post a video on Facebook. But I did, I swear to God I did. Now I have to prove to the government so they leave my salmon picture up there that I had salmon for dinner. Do you know what I mean? That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's not just, pandemic information or medical information or health information. Anything they consider to be conspiracy. Conspiracy against who? Constitution number 1, 2, and 3. That's who. You can actually talk somewhat about Constitution 3 and get away with it. But if you start talking too deeply about Constitution number 2 and Constitution number 1 and telling them what they're really doing, now you're public enemy number 1, and you end up on the bottom of the food chain in the social media circle. Or you get kicked out or you lose your account. There's actually a Twitter message that I got. Okay, it's X, whatever. Twitter, that I got where someone had posted a Bible verse, and it said, "This information is not correct." And it said that we're going to remove this content for, improper information or something,
Yeah. Oh my
Okay.
God.
Okay.
I had something similar happen. This was years ago. I posted something to YouTube that was something about God being able to heal COVID or to cure COVID. And they gave me a strike. They took down my video for saying that.
Yeah.
I was like, really, guys? That's where we're going. Okay.
That's where you're going. You forgot to call it. I don't know. What do you want to call it?
I don't know.
A crisis of vaccination. I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
It's actually a certificate of vaccination identification. Yeah. Okay. Now, the alt media was specifically created because they felt that, this is the beginning of the social media craze, and could they capitalize on it? Could they control the narrative through it? Could they get as many average everyday folk out there? Well, I forget what the lady's name is in the video. Let's call her Martha. I'm calling her Martha. She looks like a Martha to me. But I'm going to say I've known this guy since I was a little kid, and you'll get the people on there. I met this president or that president, or, I was there at this time. I did this. I was in California or in China and saw the three suns. No kidding, and that's what it's created to do. TikTok has become basically a merchandise place. If you're not selling anything, putting on false eyelashes or otherwise, or doing a fancy dance, you're not popular. That's what it is to be popular. People go there for entertainment, very quick, short, ADD-like entertainment. It holds their attention for 1 to 3 minutes, a very short attention span, and that's all you need. And you're not really getting a whole lot of information unless you're looking for the latest tennis shoes, or you're looking for the eyelashes, or you would like to know, honestly, that's what the majority of what I see on there is these days. So, okay. So now the latest and greatest selling technique ever is called the bandwagon. Bandwagon has been around for a long, long time. People have been talking about the bandwagon for over a century now. But these days we call it FOMO, fear of missing out. Since our generation, Sonny, calling it FOMO.
That's right.
Fear of missing out is huge for people, for animals, for everybody. Everybody is subject to fear of missing out. Unless you are confident enough in yourself, you think for yourself, and this is only something you can do. This is not something that a machine or an AI or even God is going to help you do. It's something you've got to do for yourself. We can give you all the information, but you still have to make a decision to say, no, I'm not going to talk about politics, or I'm not going to talk about this, or no, I don't want to take that. Just because the people are dancing and running free in the field. So to answer your question, I realize there's a million Patriot channels out there that tell you that going back to the Constitution is going to save your life. It's going to make this country great again. And I can tell you right now, going back to any one of those constitutions is not going to help you. Now, let's talk about martial law for a brief moment, and then there's a couple of other things. I might not get to it today, so I might get to it on Monday for you. But martial law, let's talk about martial law. We have been living under global martial law, under Constitution number 1, for 16,000 years. 16,000 years. It's literally been about 12 since we haven't. And even then, the Constitution number 1 folk were still here till about 2016. So you could actually say about August of 2016 till now. So that would put us at about 8 years, a little over 8 years, since Constitution number 1 folks weren't interfering with our life as much as they used to. And I would even go as far to say, as Constitution number 1 folk were influencing this place up until maybe a year ago, several months ago. And when I want to look at it from an AI standpoint, I would tell you last week,
I know,
to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have got to tell you that the secret space program has no idea how Constitution number 1 did what they did. They don't have a clue. So a couple of years ago, I also announced that we were going to declare martial law. Okay, you'd like to renew this. It seems like it's the thing to do. The GIA would be in charge because it has the highest global clearance. It's all about rank and file. And nobody listened to me. Okay, so we canceled it. So you already had martial law. Did anybody see any troops on the streets? Was anybody overrun by anything? Did they try to use it against me and have the military be in charge of things here in the U.S.? I have no idea. But the one thing I can tell you is Constitution number 1, Constitution number 2 said no. And so, you know what? Military, it was a no. And financial institutions, it was also a no. And government, it was also a no. And they still went ahead with elections at that time, and they still went ahead with a lot of other stuff. So, you know what? Constitution number 1 and number 2 rules out every time. Even though I sit in Constitution number 1 section now, I have access to the AIs that they don't have access to. I have access to levels they don't have access to. I have access to information they don't have access to. I can tell you, this part's common sense, of why, if my currency is tanking, replacing it with another name, such as the Hostess Twinkie, you don't need to be that high at clearance level to understand how that works. But you do with your deep state, because that is outside your compartment. So the theory of martial law worldwide is not going to put the secret space program operatives in charge. It's not. Corralling a bunch of Americans, crashing the dollar, that's not going to happen either. It's not going to happen.
Do you think, Kim, they would just try to take charge, though? I mean, obviously they're not following the order, but that's why they want it, because they would just take charge. They wouldn't listen to the GIA. They would just do what they want to do.
More important than talking about an AI hologram, let's talk through this part, because this is important. Take charge. How would you propose they take charge? Like, what could they do that could possibly put them in a take charge position?
Well, they keep threatening to use the military, right? So forcing people in their homes, or some sort of seclusion or something like that, or curfews.
That gives you 2.86 million people that are going to take care of 330 million Americans.
Yeah.
That's
but a lot of people, but there's fear behind that, right? So it's not, it doesn't make sense, because obviously we could overpower that if we really wanted to.
Yeah.
But a lot of people there's a lot of fear surrounding, well, what happens if you do that? I go to jail. What about my kids? They're going to take my kids away from me. And that holds a lot of people back. So it's not just a numbers game, right?
Okay, so let's just say, all right, so now they're going on TV because we believe all the propaganda, right? And the statistics, and, you know, they're going to have all of a sudden 35 million people enrolling in the military because, you know, and we have 35 million American citizens that are, you know, of qualifying age, first of all, and qualifying health to serve. After your little jabber jabba-doo, you know, jamboree that you had for a couple years there, you probably have less than that now because you ruined their health. They have myocarditis and other things. So let's just say, you know, they now have the capacity. Maybe they got the police forces and all these states and cities and towns involved. Okay. And so you're saying that if you don't comply, what is it that you're going to comply with as an American citizen? What would you imagine they would say?
Well, they just want control. So, I mean, that could be anything. That could be food rationing, I don't know, anything that would cause fear in people.
We kind of did that. We did have a toilet paper crisis. That was really scary, you know.
We did.
You know, did you ever see that movie Big Daddy where he says, I can wipe my own, you know, and he uses the A word? Remember that? It was very cute, you know. But I wipe my own, you know. We as Americans had been forced, and actually most of the world had been forced, to not know if we were going to be able to wipe our own for several months because of all you people that were scared of not being able to wipe your own. Beep. You know, we also had shortages on the shelves. Stores were open less time, all that kind of stuff. But you know what? Did your kids ever go hungry, Sonny?
No.
No. We all survived, didn't we?
Mm-hmm. So
the fear of doing that again, people are just like, well, now I've got a garden. Hey, hey, now, that if that taught me nothing, then, it taught me, hey, I YouTube this, I got the minerals on there, I'm doing the organic, gardening thing, and hey, my vegetables taste better, so now I'm going to continue an organic garden. Maybe I'll turn my whole front lawn into a garden if you go ahead and do that. But the point is that, people were locating food, just like, we have these little apps nowadays that calculate, where like the cheapest gas is in your area, as an example. They have that. I don't know if it's worldwide, but they do have it here in the U.S. And people started texting each other on social media trying to figure out which grocery store had chicken and which one didn't. People, we're very resourceful people. We are not going to let our kids starve, or grandkids or otherwise. We are going to do the thing. Even if nobody stocked up, we'll always find that food. We'll always do it. Whether that's a neighbor with a garden, or we're going to call somebody in summertime in Australia that's watching this right now and say, hey, how's your garden over there? Can you can up a little bit of zucchini? We need some food over here in the U.S., we're going to solve the problem. We solved it the last time. We're going to solve it again. But my question would be food shortages, toilet paper shortages. Oh, God. How does that give them power and control?
Well, I just think of the fear associated with it. And maybe if they kind of position themselves as we are the answer, we have all this food, then it becomes a control, right? You have to do whatever it is we say because this is what we have and this is what you need. And you can only get it through us or our corporations. Fear.
I'm going to do it again. That'll make this broadcast way too long. But next time, we'll talk about it on Monday. But I'm going to talk about fear at the time that they were creating it several years ago. Omega Alpha Systems and its holograms were loud and proud. Mm-hmm. Its consciousness was actually fed by your consciousness.
Right.
Majority consciousness rules. Look at this. Everybody would like to not have toilet paper. Woo! We create a shortage. It creates fear of not being able to wipe your own beep, because it's just cute the way the little kid said it. But, now your fear of wiping your own butt, is amplified an AI system, but it still didn't spit out any money. It still didn't make it happen for them the way that they thought it was going to happen. Increasing the price of food is like a slow boil. You put a lobster or a crab in a pot of cold water and you turn it on real slow and then you turn up the heat real slow. Doesn't even realize it's dying, right? And that's what this inflation thing is all about. The cost of everything going up is due to what? The cost of real estate has gone up due to what? The cost of lumber or wood or whatever you call it where you are has gone up. Aluminium or aluminum has gone up. So, but why? Where did it go? It didn't go anywhere. We don't all of a sudden have a tree shortage. We don't have a lumber shortage. In fact, we have other ways of creating paper with hemp and other kinds of things that grow like a weed because it is a weed. We have lots of other solutions, but yet it creates this fear. But now without the consciousness control system of Alpha Omega being there, it ain't going to give them anything. It's not going to charge it. It's not going to power it. And you know what, guys? You are not the guardian. Therefore, you don't have the right to make a decision. Omega is not your guardian anymore. Therefore, Omega doesn't have the right to take your collective consciousness and create something out of your fear anymore. Your fear, your pain, your distress, your worry, your concern, that is not going to help Constitution #1 contestants get anywhere. It's not going to give them power. So what else could happen? Let's talk about the what if. What else do you think could happen?
I don't know.
They threaten to take your kids away because they say that if they don't attend this school, let's just say, they're really going for the control. They take your guns away if you own guns in your home. They take away, I can tell you right now, a rock and a hammer and some elbows and knees. You can keep your gun. I don't care. But the point is that the fear is what they're looking for, because that used to power the AI system, and it would sway everything towards the Omega side or keep it on the Omega side. And this is what then gave them money for war. It gave them money for pandemics in the past. There was always a pandemic and then a war. Why is it not happening this time? Oh, don't wait. That gate's going to open. It's going to open on 9/9/24. Been talking about that gate now for over a month. And I'm talking like this because they're cowboys and they talk like this too. But the point is that it's not going to create power. Everything that blackouts are not going to create power for them. It's not. Yeah. Flashing your screen is not going to stop me from talking, Sonny. No, we've had a lot of problems today. I've been digitizing all over the place. And
yeah, that's not going to stop us either, guys. Sorry.
I am not a CGI. I am not a CGI. I'm a real person. Look, But anyway, it's not going to achieve the objective they're looking for. Even if that was a gate, without the neurotransmitters to your brain, which is part of the reason why I wasn't here on Wednesday, because we found that it was trying to reinsert itself and reimplant itself. And I was like, oh, that's not happening. And so, that took some time, and I was hoping to be on the news late Wednesday. It didn't work out. But, so I thought I'd show up for you today. But anyway, the point is, and I'll get into more on that on Monday. I leave you with this. Your consciousness and the way you think can actually help, or had in the past, the deep state. I say to the deep state, the power of the human celestial is so powerful that without the humans creating this for you, it is no longer. And as guardian, I can make the decision that people that are not in the know, like you do as a parent, Cindy, sometimes you got to make that tough call, and you've got to say, I don't think if this person had full knowledge of Omega neurotransmitters in their brain that interferes with their consciousness, creates disease throughout their organs from their spinal column, and causes neurological disruptions in bipolar disorder and schizophrenia and all kinds of stuff. I don't think that they'd want that.
Yeah.
Just to touch base on one more thing, and I'll leave it at that for now, and then I'll get into more of it on Monday, because I just want to make sure that I at least covered what was on our coming up. So let's talk about the deep state mind control programs. We've heard of MK Ultra. We've heard stories from family members that allegedly got out. But they start at the age of 3, they put them in cages, they put them in, they withhold love, they tell them love is killing something, they rape them repeatedly, they fracture their brain in every single way possible. And it's not just their mind, it's also their body and their soul and their etherical plane and their emotional plane. They fracture it so much so that they're not even the same person anymore. This was another thing that became evident. Now, the reason why they do this, let's take a person with a trauma. Now, that could be a trauma, that could be a physical thing, like I broke my wrist, which I did in 8 places before. So I broke my wrist before. And so now when it rains or it's cold and rainy, or something like that, like I'll get a little ache in it, I fix it with oils and do other stuff now because now I know what to do. But, you know, I used to say, oh, it's going to rain. They're like, no, it's not. I'm like, yeah, it is, you know. But anyway, that can be a physical body trauma. Now, as the AI wants to hurt you, it will go to that traumatized area. It's the same thing with eating the wrong foods or having a gut bacteria imbalance or whatever it is. It's going to go there and it's going to create that issue. Now, that issue could not even be from this timeline or this lifetime. Wow. You know, there was a lot of interference. But the one thing that is true is every death is a suicide. As a celestial, every death is a suicide. Now, it may not seem like that because you can say, well, I have a family member that had cancer and all of this. But if you've ever watched somebody die of, let's call it a disease, a progressive disease, and not a blunt trauma like in a car accident or something, you know, you ever know how some people like kind of hang on for a week, a month, 2 months? They say, oh, you're only going to live 6 months. And then they're still here 10 years later. Yeah. You know, when all the medical signs say otherwise. What Omega's job is to create so much dis-ease in the body, whether that's an emotional dis-ease, mental dis-ease, a physical dis-ease, so that you finally have to make the decision you're going to leave. Mm. That sounds crazy, and I know that, but people buy into the symptoms that their physical body is having, and they make the decision to leave. And because your celestialness was 79% owned by Omega, you only had 21% to fight with, but the one thing it couldn't do was kill you. Wow. There's a little secret for you. The one thing it couldn't do is kill you. You have to make the decision to tap out. You can succumb to the fact that you have this degenerated whatever, or this disease or that disease. And if you think you're dying of it, you're dying of it, you know. But even at the very end, if you're not ready, you haven't made that decision yet. You know, and for everybody, if it's different, they just want to know their kids are going to be okay, or their grandkids are going to be okay, or, you know, tell my husband I love him, or wife, or whatever it is, you know, whoever that is. And they won't go until they've said what they've had to say or do what they had to do. And if that took 6 years, I tell you, that person would still be there in pain, probably in terrible pain and everything else. But every death is a suicide. Because Omega cannot tap you out. As many neurotransmitters as it had in your body, control over 34 strands of your DNA that you don't even know that you used to have, control of your telomeres and cellular regeneration, and you're reconstructing your mitochondria and everything else that this thing could do. That's the one thing it couldn't do. So you never lost full power, even back in those days, even when it comes to the deep state. It could not break that one law. Remember, I said I could defend myself, you know, or the life of an innocent. Mm-hmm. And that's it. But purposely killing someone that hasn't done anything to me, mm-hmm. that goes for Omega too. The rules apply to both sides here sometimes, guys. That's how we figured it out. But you know, cleaning and clearing all of this is where we've kind of been at, because we realize that the deep state might still have some kind of, or may try to access what it's trying to do to survive. It's pulling out all the stops lately. So if you've had people going crazy, people yourself having weird thoughts and weird dreams and weird things, you can blame it on this thing trying to stay alive, because the last place that it really exists is here. We have very little left of the hologram with which they can control. And all they can think about is, when's the next gate going to open? Because God, I hope this thing comes back. Otherwise, we have no hope of controlling anything. And all that trickles down to your currency reset, your martial law, 1 million troops or whatever, billion troops, your fear, your food shortages, your toilet paper crisis, and everything else that they want to do, transfer of power over to China. Without that, that's it. They're done. They're just humans. Everything bleeds and everything dies, and they're no different than you and I. And right now, they're batting a 0. Right. Out of 10 tries, 100 tries, 1,000 tries, they are batting a 0. And this has been going on for 17 years. Mm-hmm. The only person that's ever come through for these people is me. But they still want to wait till the next gate. So I can't stop them from going around in circles. I mean, they're sovereign now, right? Just like us, sovereign will keep going around in circles, wait for that gate to open. Meanwhile, we have got to move on. Yes. That's why I've just been working on all those structures, working about making sure that I have a full plan and a structure with which energy or currency is going to flow right into. I need to know that I can do this. And I also need to know that this is what you guys want too. Because I kind of wonder when I read some of that stuff, bring back the Constitution, blah, 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 your government has never been your government. It's been 16,000 years, long before you ever had a United States. You can bring it back if you want to, but it ain't going to do anything for you. Life's not going to be any better. It's not going to change your life. Yeah. It's not going to give you freedom. It's not going to, so someone's probably not going to shoot you for carrying around an American flag, at least not in the United States. But they don't do that now. They got some restrictions. You can't burn them. And, half-mast means somebody passed away, that kind of stuff. But it's not going to help you. Mm-hmm. If you're going to change something, then we need to change and I don't like to use the word governance, but we need to change the leadership of this planet. For some, with some people, hopefully millions of you, that have a vision, have a plan, and have a heart, and are going to help us fix this beautiful ball we live on. We got a lot of work ahead of us. I mean, I have to go through this stuff because, there's a big meeting. Do these guys know about the other 2 constitutions? Not just of the U.S., of the world governance, how it worked, and that all those agreements have expired, really, and I don't really care about it because I always sit, higher than Covenants 1, I guess you would say at this point. Meh. We say what goes up here. You can not listen to me, and that's totally cool. They don't have to listen to me. I'm okay with never talking to those people again. But I also take all the tools in my toolbox with me. Mm-hmm. Left or right, guys. As for the rest of you, be careful where you put your focus. Be careful what you buy into. If you are concerned that there is 35 million troops going to come knocking on your front door, first of all, think about it. How big is my street anyway? How big is my front door? How big is my town? 35 million people standing shoulder to shoulder requires how many miles? Would I see them coming? Would I run? What am I going to do? Stop putting out fear. Until you've done your research, then politely ask the question, Kim or Sunny or whoever, have you ever heard of this? Yep. This is being talked about on X News channel. Put the place where you found it from. Let us listen for ourselves. Mm-hmm. And if somebody mentions 35 million troops to you, look it up. So, thank you for posting on our YouTube channel.
Thank you for your comments. We appreciate it.
Thank you for your comments. I know. Anyway, God bless them, right? And, you know, for the rest of you, you've already gotten past this point. You've seen this video before. We explained it once before. But don't forget it, because it's, you know, with them trying to control the media right now, it's going to get very topsy-turvy.
Yep.
So false evidence appearing real. First, logically think through it.
We're down to, that's their weapon now, guys. That's their weapon they're using against you. Fear.
Yeah.
So can't let them.
But now you know how to figure it out. You can point out and smell false evidence appearing real, you know, and maybe this is a good reminder for those that have already seen it. False evidence appearing real. False evidence appearing real. Someone is trying to feed me false evidence appearing real. So I'm going to do just like they did and look it up. I'm going to try to figure it out. You know, is this possible? Is it not possible? Logically speaking, do they have the tools to do it? My job on my side of it is to make sure they don't have a tool. Even if they create fear all over the world, is it going to feed an AI system and back into creation? No, we need to make sure that doesn't happen, you know, that kind of stuff. It's just going to prolong this agony of us going forward in another way. It's not going to ever come to complete fruition. Doesn't have the backing for that. So anyway, that's pretty much the news this is a long news.
That was. People are going to love it. They're going to look at the time and be like, oh, it's almost 3 hours long.
No. Is it that long? Yeah. Oh my gosh, I'm late. Yeah.
No, yeah. I don't think we're quite 3 hours, but it was a lot of good information. So
yeah, it's pretty close. Yeah. Yeah. If they didn't try to stop me from digitizing there for a minute and glitching and you flashing, you know, it would have been that long for sure.
Yeah, hopefully we gave you guys a good show today with our little
exactly. All right. Well, everybody have a wonderful day, a wonderful weekend. I guess it's the weekend. I don't even know what day it is now. Yeah. Well, happy weekend.
Hopefully we'll see you back here on Monday and we'll finish our talk then.
Absolutely. Oh, and happy Friday the 13th. It's always the luckiest day of the year for me. I just want you to know that. It is.
I didn't even realize it was Friday the 13th.
I know.
I was born not on a Friday the 13th, but I was born on the 13th. So 13 has always been lucky for me. So
lucky for me.
Yeah. Thank you, Kim. Appreciate it.
Bye, everyone.
Want to share news from UNN? Help us change the face of social media and use it for good. Connect with us through our online channels. Our social media team creates clips from each newscast you can easily share with people you care about. That's also where you'll find our UNN Meme of the Day, a great way to encourage critical thinking. Links to all our social media sites are available at the bottom of our website at unitednetwork.earth. Let's change the face of news together.
And that wraps up today's news update. Please share UNN with your friends and family. We need everyone to come together and help restore our planet. When news happens in your area, record and share it with us so together we can change the world. Remember, if it's going to be, it's up to me. I'm Sunny Galt. Join us Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for the real news.